Hi, this is Mimi.
And this is Lee, and you're listening to Getting Rich After Divorce. And we have a special guest today, Leanne Poteet. And before we get started, before Leanne introduces herself, I would just want to, if you're watching us on YouTube, we did wear our uniforms today intentionally. Mimi and I are actually both in black turtlenecks, and Leanne has on a beautiful red or fuchsia turtleneck. So that's really funny. And we all have on our glasses. So Leanne, the topic today is an Enneagram. I always want to say Enneagram, but it's Enneagram, and a fascinating topic. A lot of people have heard about it. Some people have taken, the test to see what their type is. But as with most of these tests, you don't know what to do with the score once you get it. It's like, oh, cool, I'm a 9, or I'm a 2, or I'm a 5, and then what? So Leanne is here to help us sort through all of this and help you understand a little bit more what do you do after the test. So Leanne, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Great. I'm Leanne Poteet. I am a graphic designer, and I have done some life coaching as well. And I'm obsessed with the Enneagram. And so I was so happy to be asked to do this because I love talking Enneagram. I love that your question was, Lee, what do you do with this? Because I've always been interested in, personality types and learning more about what I am, how I work. I remember doing the Myers-Briggs and finding out, oh, I'm an INFP, I guess. And what do I do with that? And it just sort of felt like, well, okay, I'm introverted. That's just it. That's how I am. And I had heard about the Enneagram, and I thought it was ridiculously confusing, and I didn't get into it for a while. Then I was introduced to it by my life coach, and I decided to delve in and found that it is a different kind of system because it does take you on a path. Like, if you are the same type of a life for your lifetime generally. But there's a lot of growth potential, obviously, in all of us. And the Enneagram, for me, can be like a map towards that.
Okay, a map. Good.
Yeah.
So just give like a brief definition if somebody said to you, what is Enneagram?
Okay.
Just kind of what is it? And if you have any, just like can touch on the history of it and where.
Okay.
To the best of your knowledge.
Yeah. What's made it so popular? Like kind of,
Yeah.
what was its evolution?
Yeah.
It's a personality system. I've heard that it is ancient, that it came from the Sufis, and I'm not sure if that's true or not. So it was developed more in the 1970s, and that is my understanding is that's when it came to the United States. And I think just through social media and people being really interested in it, it's been shared a lot. There's been a ton of books written about it, and there are a lot of websites that you can go to. And there's not actually one conclusive test for finding your type either. So there's a lot of tests you can do online that are free and some that charge money for. But then really, it has developed a lot recently. And the best way to find out your type is to research all of the types and to see what resonates with you. So I'm hoping that we can sort of talk about each type just briefly. And
yeah. And we will, in our show notes, we're going to put the link that Leanne gave us for Mimi and I to take the test again. And I'll talk more about like what our results were, and we're going to have some questions about how you use it. But first, I think Leanne wants to go through the 9 types. Just to give you guys an overview of what they are, and be listening, like she said, intuitively. Does one stand out to you?
Yeah,
That'll be interesting. And then take the test and see what happens.
Right.
So,
And Lee, I'll give you some other resources to put in your show notes as well,
okay, good.
because there's some great books and other websites too.
Awesome.
So the types are designated by numbers, so 1 through 9. And there are also some sort of common labels with them, but that's not as standardized. So type 1 can be called the perfectionist, or also could be the reformer. And the Enneagram is really, you can define the type by their motivation, not so much by their behavior, but what fears and desires does each type have. So ones are motivated by the need to live life the right way. They like to improve themselves and the world around them. I also came up with some examples sort of characters or people that are well known that you might think of.
Oh, great. Yay.
Yeah.
So I love this one. The example I have for type 1 is Mary Poppins.
Oh, nice.
Type 2 is the helper or the giver. And they are motivated by the need to be loved and valued and to express their positive feelings towards others. The example there is Mother Teresa.
I'm a type 2 was my strongest.
There you go.
I would not say I was Mother Teresa, but
Type 2s are saints, right? Type 3 is the achiever. And 3s are motivated by the need to be productive, achieve success, and avoid failure. The example I have is Bill Clinton. Might be a little charged. I should have come up with a different example.
Oh,
Yeah.
funny.
I
Okay.
know.
So would you say that that person is pursuing success for
Yes.
success's sake, like because they want to be perceived as successful?
Perceived as successful, exactly. Productive. Definitely don't want to look like a failure.
Yeah.
Type 4 is the individualist, and 4s are motivated by the need to experience their feelings, be understood, search for the meaning of life, and avoid being ordinary.
That's so funny because when I read the names, I was like, oh, I think that's going to be me. And it didn't even show up in my top things. So the
Right.
way you describe, like, because when you hear the name, it's like, oh, everybody wants to feel like, oh, I'm unique or something. But just the
Exactly.
way you described it was like, oh, I can see why that probably isn't me at all.
What is
Right,
number 2? What is number 2 trying to avoid?
They are trying to avoid being unworthy of being loved or being unwanted. I like that you said that, Mimi, because it's the labels can actually be a little confusing sometimes if you just go by that. And
Yeah.
I think like I was saying at the beginning, the Enneagram was hard for me to get into because it seems so complicated. I have to read all this stuff about everything. There's 9 types.
Right.
But that's kind of the gift of it as well, because it isn't just like, hey, you're a 4, bye-bye. You really get to explore it.
Yeah.
And the thing I like about that too is when you do start reading about yourself, it doesn't fail to talk about the negative parts either. And so you start to cringe and you go, oh, really? Somebody sees me that much.
Right.
But as I was saying, the path to healing really is seeing that, knowing that you're not the only one with that. There's this, type that definitely moves toward that. And as you see that and accept it, that really takes you to a healing place. That's one of the gifts.
Yeah. We'll try to remember that as we feel naked being
Yeah.
described. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Type 5 is sometimes called the investigator. So they are motivated by the need to know and understand everything. They want to be self-sufficient, and they definitely don't want to look foolish. They want to avoid that. An example is Albert Einstein. Type 6 is the loyalist. They are motivated by fear and the need for security. They value friendship and loyalty, and they like to be prepared. They kind of the worst scenario type of people, what's going to happen. I want to be prepared. I don't know. The example I have is weird, so I'm going to skip.
My mom, just so everybody knows. That's
Okay.
my
My mom is one too.
mom.
That's funny.
That's my example.
Your mom. Type 7 is the enthusiast or the adventurer. They're motivated by the need to be happy and do enjoyable activities and avoid pain and suffering. Example I have is Robin Williams.
And we see the darker side of that.
Right, exactly. Type 8 is the challenger. 8s are motivated by the need to be self-reliant, strong, avoid feeling weak or dependent. They like to take control. Example is MLK, Martin Luther King Jr.
Oh, interesting one.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have picked, I mean, challenger, I can see that in terms of politically, but
Right.
yeah.
So actually, when we talk about the Enneagram, we can talk about high levels within a type, low levels within a type. All of us have that.
Yeah.
MLK was functioning at the very highest of the 8.
Got you.
And they really like to protect people, especially the underdog. So you can see that type of characteristic.
That makes more sense. Thank you.
And then type 9 is the peacemaker. So 9s are motivated by the need to keep peace, to merge with others and avoid conflict. Example is Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, that's where I was the second. So I thank you for walking through those.
Yeah.
And just kind of talking about how I love the idea that we all have a lot of them, because you really can resonate with both the positive and the, more challenging aspects of each one. So it was good just to have that kind of brief overview.
There's another part of it when you talk about we can resonate with many other types. There's a part of the Enneagram that is called the wings. So what that is as you have a core type, and then you often have a wing, which is one of the 2 types on either side of you. So as a 4, my wing could be either a 3 or a 5. And so that means I can exhibit characteristics of the 3 or the 5, where I can identify somewhat with either of those. And generally people do have a wing. Some people identify with both wings, and occasionally people don't identify with either, and they're sort of more pure 4 type. But that can be a helpful way to find your type as well. Like if you think, oh, I kind of am a 4, but I sort of feel like a 3 as well. You might be one or the other, and then you sort of read more about that. And where do you find your motivation? Are you motivated more by wanting to feel special, which would be a 4, or by wanting to look like you've done a lot, be successful, which would be a 3?
Okay, so I have a question. I've never heard Enneagram spoken about. It's what's your motivator, not what your actions are.
Yeah.
So if like in your heart, okay, let's say I'm a 2, right? So if I'm like, that should be my motivator, but I'm not performing and my actions aren't reflecting that, would that kind of indicate to me that maybe I'm not being as authentic as I should? Like if your behaviors aren't matching up with what your Enneagram motivator is saying, like what does that say about how you're living your life or anything?
I think when you get to behaviors, you're probably looking more at where your mindset is at the time. Are you feeling in a healthy place, or are you feeling more in a stressful place? And the other part of the Enneagram is there are points on, it's usually thought of as a circle, and the points are around the circle. And each of us, as our core point, we have a point that we move toward when we're in stress, and a different point that we move toward when we're more healthy or in growth. So if you have felt like you are too, that's sort of your core point, then in stress, you move toward, let me check, 8, which is the challenger, the one who wants to be in control of things. The one who, and you move towards sort of the low end of that number. So it wouldn't be the high, let me protect the underdog part of the 8. It would be, let me be in conflict. Let me, I'm taking control on this situation kind of thing. Does that make sense or help at all?
Yeah, it really does. And it's fascinating because as my marriage was ending, I definitely, like when you were saying that, I was like, oh, it's like you're getting in fists up stance or kind of controlling thing. And I felt that, like being consumed by that. And so I remember one year for Lent, I was like, I have to consciously break from this. So for Lent, I gave up being in control of things I wasn't supposed to be in control of.
Brilliant.
Like I could feel that, like this just isn't right.
That is so much more meaningful than giving up chocolate or something like that.
Yes. Oh my God.
I love that you did that.
So self-reflective too.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, I want to say what we tend to do is just to help people with examples. Mimi and I are going to talk about our scores, and Leanne's going to help us understand what that means, and also how is it a map? And we'd love to know Leanne's scores too. She wants to reveal those. And she can talk about how it's been a map for her. But what I want to say about my score is mine have changed. When I first met Leanne, we were in coach training together like 7 years ago. Yeah. And I can't believe it's been that long, Leanne. And my score was a pretty solid 9. I forget what the wing was, but I know I was a 9. And then just now I took it, and let me read to you what it says. I know it's the top guess, and they even, like, the score said, we're not sure what you are, basically. And hang on, my phone is just spinning, but let me get to the actual thing here. Yeah, so it says you're most likely a 3. And it's the top wing sequence that it gives is a 3 wing 2. But all the scores were really, really close. Type 7 was also my next highest score, like really close to the 3. And so I had asked Leanne before we got on and recorded, but Leanne, what did you want to tell him what you said to me about that?
Yeah. So it's useful to think of yourself as a 25-year-old when you're trying to determine your type. And I think that maybe because our prefrontal cortexes are, finally developed at that age, and we're more kind of raw in our raw personality. So if you can think back to how you were then and what motivated you then, that can be helpful. Because in fact, as we grow and develop and have experiences, we do sort of become more of all of the types. We're not, it's not just a rigid system where you're stuck as a 4. You would hope to become more well-rounded and enjoy experiencing a lot of the cool characteristics of all of them. And I think we all have all of this in us. It does come down to what motivates us.
Mm-hmm. So at 25, I don't know what Mimi would say about me as a 25-year-old.
I didn't know her then.
Oh, and I don't know if I want to know what Mimi thought of me as a 25-year-old.
I mean, we were roommates then, so.
Great.
We were in Boston. We were having a good time. So that was definitely on the surface. But at 25, I started to get more serious. I do remember feeling much more concentrated on what's my career? Career became a thing. with respect to the 3, which I know is like the achiever,
Mhm.
I did start thinking about things. I had like 80 different things I wanted to be, and it was hard for me to narrow it down. But I was starting to consider more and more becoming a doctor. And so I actually went back and started taking classes to beef up my sciences so that I could apply. But I was also exploring many other pathways in academia. And I did none of this actually because I got married and we had a baby right away, and I ended up doing none of it. But I would say I was kind of achievement oriented, so I could kind of see the 3, but I was also more adventurous and I think fun loving and wanted to try a bunch of different things. And but I do know that achievement streak came in where I was trying to follow a pathway toward achievement. So I do see that in my personality. That's definitely
Mhm.
there. And I'm somebody who likes to start businesses and help other people start businesses. So that kind of links with that achievement thing.
Exactly. I think that's fascinating. And funny enough, the 3, 6, and 9 are connected. I
Mhm.
don't know if you've seen this sort of map that the Enneagram is. It's a circle with different arrows in the middle.
I've seen that. I'll
Right.
have to really study it some more. So what does
Right.
that mean?
Yeah. It's so when I say that you have a point where you go to when you're in health and when you go to when you're in stress. So the 3 and the 6 and the 9 are connected in that way. And
Mhm.
the 3 goes to the 9 in health. Is that correct? No, the 6 in health and the 9 in stress. So the
That
6,
makes sense.
I
Yeah.
brought up the 6 because they are often the people who do build businesses. And I think Martha Beck, in fact, is a 6. So that kind of energy is 6 like.
Mhm.
And then when you thought you were a 9,
I was very stressed out and trying to hold my family together. There was a lot of stress because I was post-divorce, which, all of us here are divorced and our audience
right?
members are divorced. But I would say when I met you, Leanne, I was much more in the thick of even still trying to figure out like some of the legal stuff with my ex. And
Yes, I
I
remember.
was definitely at more of a stress level than even, which is weird because there's a lot of stressful stuff going on in my life because I'm in the sandwich generation and I've got an elderly mom who I've been trying to take care of. But, but I think I've managed my stress better now than I did then.
Mhm.
I've had years of learning how to manage stress. So I probably deal with my stress better now than I did at that point in time, even though I was learning how to do it. So that
Absolutely.
makes sense to me because the 9 for me, Leanne, was not that I'm at heart a peacemaker, but I was desperately trying to make things less chaotic and more peaceful. And so I was
Exactly.
more likely to be a quote unquote peacemaker
Yeah, that makes a
because
lot of
of the
sense to
stress.
me.
Yeah. Yeah.
The sort of lower level of the 9 also can include a numbing out.
Yes. Yeah. Totally get that.
Yeah,
Totally get that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating. So 3 makes a lot of sense to me for you.
What's the high of the 6? Like if that's me in health, what is that?
Right. So that's loyalty, friendship, building systems like a business.
Yeah,
Um, yeah.
that makes sense. Okay, thank you so much for explaining that because I think for people out there who are like, huh, or I'm having a hard time connecting to this, type, to
Yeah.
think back to yourself at the age of 25 to see what you were all about in that time frame as you were shifting to adulthood.
Right. And then, yeah, the adventuring part of us all when we're 25, um, is fun to think about. And some people, could find that they are a 7 because of that. But the rest of us, it's just maybe the function of our age at that point of life.
Right, right,
So
right.
it
That
can
makes
get
sense.
a little complicated. Yeah.
I joke all the time that I would have loved age 26 and 27 to have lasted a decade.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like those
Right.
those like late 20s, depending on where you were, I was still single. And so life was all about me. And I was, I wasn't the poverty stricken child that I was right when I came out of college and got my first job. And I was like, just that freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see why looking back for a lot of people to that age would give you an indication of
Mm-hmm.
kind of what your motivation
Yeah. What do you
was.
find for you, Mimi, about what type you think you are from when you were 25?
So when I come in as 22 and the helper, I definitely have been that my entire life.
Uh-huh.
I have stepped in. I'm one of 4 children that are super close in age. And I'm the oldest daughter. I'm number 2 in a hierarchy. And my mom was 23 when she had her 4th child.
Wow.
So we were tight and a family all growing together. And I think as the oldest daughter, I really
Mm-hmm.
stepped into that, like mama's helper
Absolutely.
and
Yes.
everything, what can I give and how can I do that from a very early age. And so I think that battling control sometimes has become a coping mechanism. So I can see the 2 so well. And I just had a question too about the scores. So when you get your scores back, right, they're numbered too. So it's like I'm type 2 and it says next to it 11.
That might be I don't know, the number of questions that you got for that, or it's just the highest score. I'm not sure
How they get it, because my next one is like an 8. And then
So
all the other ones are like kind of grouped together in that like 6 to 8 range. So it's like I felt like, oh, I was like way up there.
yeah.
Like my 2 is like really pulled away from
Mhm.
everything else. So I wonder if that's like, I hadn't thought about it till you were talking about like the high level of the 2. Like
Yeah, I think that's a little different. I think that's just a scoring thing for the
okay.
test. Yeah. And we all have high level and low level of our numbers even within the
Okay.
same day. It's
Mhm.
it's not, unfortunately, it's not like you can achieve the highest level and then you're set.
Darn
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I know.
Oh,
Darn.
check that off my list.
Exactly.
I've been my perfect helper today.
Yeah.
Exactly. But it's interesting for 2s. We talked about when you disintegrate or go into stress, you go to 8, but they all for a health or a growth point, they go to 4, which is, as we talked about, the individualist. And the highest form of that can be creativity. So as I talked about using the Enneagram as a map, sometimes you might say, listen, I'm a little stuck here in my giving for others. Where can I go? How can I sort of get out of that? Maybe what can I do as going to the 4 would be more thinking about myself. What do I need? Maybe I can explore my creativity,
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
yeah. Definitely. I can see that for me. My favorite place in my house is my craft closet. I don't
Yeah.
even have to do anything with it. I can literally, when I'm having a bad moment, just open it, and I'm like,
I love it.
look at all of these supplies. I remember my sister-in-law called me one time, and she has 2 sons and I have 2 daughters. She goes,
Mm.
oh, we have to do this science project and we can only use supplies in our house. And I'm like, oh, I wish you were in my house because you would have every supply you could possibly need.
Excellent.
So yeah, I love seeing the individualist in that way as creativity, because I believe that creativity can be so healing.
Yeah.
So I
And as a
definitely resonate with that.
as a 2, do you feel sometimes that you do get stuck in just giving for others, anticipate what others need,
Mhm.
doing for them, and then you lose kind of yourself?
Yeah, and totally withdraw like becomes and I think that creativity can sometimes be a like
Yeah.
stepping back into yourself and
Yes. Get
replenishing.
grounded. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And as a 4 for me, I'm the 4, the individualist, and the I can get too into myself, just too like oh, poor me, and I can do grass is greener kind of stuff. Envy is a kind of a downside of a 4. And a path away from that is towards a 1. That's what 4s go to in health. And 1s can be, hey, what's kind of the right way to do things here? What's the moral thing to do?
Oh, cool.
Even like, I find that doing stuff like, clearing clutter or organizing takes me out of my for me kind of place into a healthier place. And actually, for my point of disintegration, my stress point is at 2.
Mhm.
And that can be where I'm like, oh, just let me be recognized for all I give. So,
Mhm. Oh, that's so interesting. I think this makes so much more sense to me when you talk about it in relationship to your triad.
mhm.
The 4 makes way more sense.
Okay, good.
Just looking at it as a silo, which I think a lot of people would tend to do,
Mhm.
it feels a little bit like the Myers-Briggs is like, oh, great, I've been labeled.
Yeah.
Oddly, they labeled me an extrovert, but I feel so much like an introvert. I'm wondering, like, do I just take tests badly because I'm getting like all these wacky scores? But because I don't, but so it feels like, oh, there's like a stamp on your forehead.
Yes.
You're like an ENFP, and great, it's like you're
Exactly.
labeled. Perfect.
Exactly.
But with this, I like how it can show you more about how you are motivated,
Mhm.
and also maybe because you're motivated, how you behave
Mhm.
when you're stressed out, when you're feeling healthy. That's easier for me to understand what to do with it, because
Mhm.
then it gives me a place I can look. I can look to this. I know nothing about a 6, so I can go read up on that and see, could these activities, these motivators pull me out of a bad place? I like that idea.
Another fabulous benefit of the Enneagram is we can feel compassion for other people, other numbers. I found that so wonderful for me. Like, rather than feeling so annoying, why are you telling me all this information? I realize, oh, he's a 5. He gets his feeling of usefulness by having a lot of knowledge and wants to share it with people he loves.
Mm.
And then, yeah, oh, good. I get that, and I totally feel a lot more compassion. And there's a trick about it. You don't want to go about your life typing other people.
Mhm.
That's kind of an ethical thing.
Yeah.
But you can, use it by seeing what kind of characteristics people in your life have, and helping you to understand them more. Reading about their possible type. Everyone should be able to type themselves. Some people don't want to be typed or don't have any interest in wanting to know
Mhm.
what their type is.
Yeah.
And so when I have coached parents, I have said, you can't really type your kids. For one, they're young, but you can look at these types and see what they are, exhibiting, and how you might feel some compassion for them because
Mhm.
of what is the motivator for someone who might have that type.
Right.
So that makes me, I know you said you were a coach and did coaching. Do you use Enneagram in your coaching
Yeah.
directly or indirectly or both?
Both, because I love it and I'm obsessed with it and I think it's so useful. So if a client also, can get into it, then we can really use it as a tool. Some people don't want to, and that's fine, but that's true for any tool in coaching.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I have seen people get really interested and find it very helpful in their personal growth.
Yeah. I mean, I found it fascinating just through this conversation, being able to connect at different points in my life and
Mhm.
see where it was showing up and how, without even knowing it,
Mhm.
I was following this rubric of
Yeah, exactly.
types.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Yeah, I can definitely see it.
and it almost can make it easier to talk about yourself in relation to this. Like, it seems like very open pathway into conversations about what could be some potentially hard conversations.
Oh my gosh, you should, also you should be around Enneagram people. Like they just go crazy. Just throw numbers here and there. And it's like everybody's following along. Yeah, they're so obsessed. But no, normal people can talk about it too.
Normal people. Oh, that's so funny.
I consider myself abnormal, Enneagram, weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, it's fun to and helpful to see, oh, hey, I'm not just this one-off weirdo. I am actually a part of this number. And there's some behavior patterns and motivations that I relate to, and I'm not weird.
Yeah.
So a lot of people who come to us, to, get help starting a business, they're going to be usually having an online business as a coach, a consultant, or a teacher. So how could somebody take the Enneagram assessment, figure out all these things about themselves? How would you use it for yourself as a solopreneur? How could it help you? I know that's a tricky question, but
Yeah, things that come to mind are definitely the compassion for yourself. I mean, when you're taking risks, putting yourself out there, you can feel very vulnerable. And if you can just take some time and look at your type, you can really spend time seeing, oh, these might be my weaknesses, but okay, I can accept them. I can be okay with that and move forward that way. I find that really helpful. Another way is, like I was saying, when you sort of can see other people's personality characteristics, you might find it useful if you're working with a vendor or a client who exhibits an 8 personality, a challenger. Oh, let me go and see how it's best to approach somebody like that. I think that, that can be really helpful.
yeah, I mean, and it's also when you even go into thinking about it the way you just kind of went through, to do that, you have to take a step back and take a breath.
Yeah.
You're not just in fear, fight or flight or freeze or fawn or all the things from, the fear response.
Absolutely.
If there's like a challenging situation, it's more like you can take a breath, take a step back, think about it through this framework to see if that can help you find a way forward in a more challenging situation. What comes to mind for me, because burnout is definitely my issue, probably the hardest thing for me and moving forward in my business is just dealing with trying to keep burnout at bay. Is I'm imagining that in that triad, so for me, when I'm not well, I would slide into a 9. That if you find yourself sliding into a 9, like you just let's just not confront anybody. Let's just keep don't say anything because you don't want to make a wave. Or you're numbing out. Like for me, that would be binge watching, TV and just not doing stuff, not looking at stuff. If you see yourself doing that, you need to rest. You need to rest, and you need to take care of yourself as a business person.
Absolutely.
Because as a solopreneur, we're not going to sugarcoat it. It's hard, it's hard to keep going and to keep all the plates spinning and to keep consistency in your business. So if you notice that you're sliding into, the less helpful habits or ways of being, that's a red flag to take care of yourself, to double down on taking care of yourself, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely. And to look at the strengths of your type. Oh, remind yourself, wow, I'm a 3. I really know how to get this done.
Yeah.
I mean, I need some rest right now, but I can do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think because once you can acknowledge them, you can lean into them.
Yeah.
Like you said, and it's really fascinating because if you have been following along on our podcast last week, we put up the podcast about Colby or they're going to follow in this series, the Colby. This will follow the Colby one.
I
And
love
this
that.
is good because it really is leaning into what your core motivators are and what's motivating you into action and strengths along that way, where the Colby is like, what is your kind of go-to action mode? So I can see how really, you know, I'm going to play now that we've had this conversation, is how do I use these two really distinct and unique,
Mhm.
you know, assessments of myself in this business owning and growth world.
Yeah, my
It's really-
brain is already, just in you saying that, meaning my brain is doing its rubric cube thing. I'm like, oh, if 6 is the healthy way to go and I'm a quick start, you know, I need to put those two things together and see how I make
Yeah.
it all work. Yeah, it seems like we could just keep diving really deep on this, Leanne. I know I have a strong sense that we would like to have you back for a part 2, because we've really just scratched the surface here, and I want to kind of play around with it and read up a little bit more, because I feel like I don't even know the questions to ask because it's still so new to me.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, do that. Then we can be the weirdo Enneagram types and just
then we
throw
can
those
just
around.
talk in Enneagram language.
My
Yeah.
4 is showing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sorry, guys.
I love it.
But I do have another question for you, Leanne. Like, if you wanted to grow your business and what's your triad? Tell me again. You said
Yeah,
it.
I'm a core 4, so
Yeah.
I go to a 1 in health and a
Okay.
2 in stress.
Okay, so to grow your business, like, just to give people kind of the map for how you do it, maybe somebody else out there will score kind of the way you score. What would you do? What would be red flags, like, oh, I need to watch out for this, or I need to lean into this? What would you do?
Right. I love that question. Also, you're being a coach right now.
I am. It was sneaky. I thought maybe you wouldn't notice.
So the red flag, I think, would be go to the giving to and trying to be a chameleon, wanting to, oh, hey, what do they want? I can do that. I can be that. I can give you what you want. Go towards a 1 in health. What are the right things to do? How do I need to organize myself to get my business started? Jump into that. Don't be afraid. And rely on my core. The health of my core is I am an individualist. I have a unique thing to offer here. So all 3 of those.
Nice. Oh, I love that. Beautiful.
Very helpful.
Yeah.
Very helpful.
All right. Well, I definitely think we're going to have you back if you would be willing to do it again.
I would love to. Thank you.
Yeah, this has just been really fun to learn about the Enneagram and to talk about how to use it once you have those scores, because these tests can be really frustrating, and that you go to all the time and effort and then it's just like, that was great. But
Right.
now I feel with this one in particular, I like how it's a map. Anything you can tell me is a map, I'm going to love. So yeah, I'm motivated my motivation right now is to read more, to get the book and read through it.
Excellent.
And then you were going to give us some
Yes.
recommendations for that, and we'll put them in the liner notes.
Yeah, good. And if somebody wants to work with you, Leanne, how do they find you and get in touch with you?
I'm at leannepoteet.net. So LEANNEPOTEET.net.
Super. We'll have that we'll
Thank
put
you.
that link in there too, so people
Beautiful.
Thanks.
can learn.
Oh,
from
wait,
you.
but tell people like your precise kind of coaching. What do you kind of lean toward doing? Like I can speak, I've been coached by Leanne. She's a wonderful coach. So I would highly recommend working with her. She's very, very gentle, very intuitive, perceptive, and I think therefore, very effective. So what kind of clients do you typically work with, or do you want to work with?
Yeah, anybody who's I typically work with parents, actually. And because I love that, and it's such a challenge. It's like the biggest challenge you'll ever love, being a parent.
Yeah.
But yeah, anybody who loves personal growth, I love to do that kind of work.
Okay. All
Well,
right, beautiful.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your
Yeah.
time today and your knowledge and expertise.
Thank you. It was really fun.
All right.
Thank you for listening to Getting Rich After Divorce. We're so happy you were here. We truly value each and every one of you.
Yes, we sure do. And be sure to subscribe to us wherever you're catching us, whether it's on, through a podcast platform or on YouTube. Please subscribe and give us a 5-star rating if you feel you deserve that. And join our community so you get updates and stick with us.